we don't pronounce the V like a W and W like a V, which is a very common, very common. Those nuns would sit down and teach us how to enunciate. They insisted we join debating teams, which made all the difference in the world. I think we were in debates every week. And then we got the confidence to even start a women's cricket team. And Harish was the first coach of the women's cricket team. But I have to tell you a story about Harish and the cricket coach. I am going to. Sorry. I don't know if you know the story, Rania. So we go to play Stella Morris College. I came from a co-ed college. We play a women's college. And first time in Chennai that two teams are playing, two women's teams, and Harish was the So like the second ball I'm bowling, she is out, LBW. And we ask for a call. And Harish says, no, not out. And then 2 overs later, clean ball, she's out. So I go to Harish and say, what the hell happened? She was out in the first over. He says, good looking girl, ma. Even those days, what women have to go through.
Oh my.
At that time, he was not a charmer. She got 2 overs free. She was good looking, but from the side,
Okay, I don't remember any of this.
I think all of that. And in fact, Harish played with a rock band. I played with another rock band. We were not very good at all, but we got on stage. We performed. We were given the license to perform. And I think the fact that we grew up in an environment where there was a foot on the brake, but there was a heavy foot on the accelerator too, made a huge difference and built our confidence. And going back to your question, Harish, I never thought I'd become a business person or a CEO, because nobody else was in business in the family. Everybody was a lawyer or a doctor or bank employee, so the word business did not enter our lexicon. That started to come much later. But that foundation of confidence, the foundation of you can be whatever you want to be, we are not going to hold you back because of your gender, all of those made a profound difference to our lives.
Yeah, actually that was also kind of what spurred you to go to business school.
Actually, my sister Chandrika going to
she was
Ahmedabad.
first, and then you went after her.
Yeah,
Make sure that you didn't go to the same school.
I had to, because otherwise I'd be viewed as a failed sister. And also, in those days it taught me that women will have a tougher time, because you see, we had bad.
You see, he's pointing to Harish.
Okay,
The umpiring decision.
Okay, moving on. All right. So you had the mantra, performance with purpose, which reflected a deep sense of responsibility to community, health, and the environment. So the question was, what can similar or smaller organizations and nonprofits learn from that approach?
So first, performance is something that's deeply ingrained in every CEO, because you have to deliver shareholder value, you have to deliver performance, and PepsiCo was a high performance company, so you had to sustain that performance. Purpose is not something you can do just because it's a program or something you made up. You've got to feel it in your heart. And it's got to be either a lived experience or a shared experience that causes purpose to come out of you. So I want to go back and talk about some of the things in my life that felt, brought out purpose. First, when we were in Chennai, in high school and in college, there was a older gentleman in Chennai who would go to Saidapet, one of these neighborhoods in Madras. Every weekend, the gypsy kids would come there, the quality kids. They would come there, and they would come there dirty. And he insisted that they be washed, a new outfit given to them, and perhaps for an hour or so, somebody teaches them to read or write.
Wow.
And so I ran into him at some event and he said, would you consider coming on weekends to do this? If I told my parents I was going to do this, they wouldn't have allowed me, because they wondered whether I detained it from them because that's how the gypsy community was viewed that way. So unbeknownst to my parents, I'd go with Mr. Shankaran to clean these gypsy kids. And that gave me a sense of great accomplishment to say, these kids who didn't choose to be gypsies, their parents gave birth to them, they go from place to place, hardly get anything to eat, they can't read or write, and they're filthy. But for that brief moment, we made them look like princesses. We made them feel great. So a tremendous sense of accomplishment. The other thing that bothered me deeply was Chennai, where we grew up, Madras, there was no water. You know that, Vaishali, there was no water. There was drought every summer, and we would, fill water in little pots, and that's what we lived with all day. It was a really tough life. But yet, companies that were on the outskirts of Chennai would keep drawing water from the aquifers. And they won't pay for the water, you see, they just had strong pumps and they pulled it out from the aquifers. And that too left a profound impression on me, because when I was working in India, I saw how companies didn't care how much plastic they threw out or how much water they used. So all of these issues, when you mix what the business is doing and look at it in the context of somebody's life, you say, God, here are companies that could make a huge difference to society. Why don't they use their business model to make a change in society as opposed to just focusing on the almighty buck at all costs? So when I came to PepsiCo and I could now set the agenda, the question was, how can you keep performing, but what do you have to do so that you leave the company better than when you got it? And I realized then, based on the environment and changing trends, the first thing I had to do is change the portfolio. Not throw away what we had. Those were important products and people loved them the world over. How do you reduce the salt, fat and sugar in the core products? How do you dial up the zero-calorie products? And then how do you really introduce good-for-you products? So the portfolio was divided into fun for you, better for you, good for you. And how do you increase the better for you, good for you? So that was one plank. The second was reducing water use, plastic, and reducing the carbon footprint. All of this was new to PepsiCo at that time. I became CEO in 2006. And, people like, do we really have to do it? Yes, we do have to do it because we operate in so many countries where we will not get a license to operate unless we do this. Because, I don't know if you know, in Palakkad, Coca-Cola was thrown out because they were using too much water. Pepsi was not, because we had started water reduction programs that were substantial. And then from people's perspective, you can't treat people like tools of the trade. You've got to treat them like talent, like assets. Sitting here in Southern California, all the talent here are treated with great respect. Yet, people in the company, we treat them like tools of the trade. I thought we should change that equation and treat every employee with great kindness and respect and make them feel welcome. So it was performance, and then purpose had three planks. Nourish the planet differently, replenish the planet differently, and cherish our consumers. Those were the three planks of purpose. And that's how Performance with Purpose was born.
Now, it's a message, I think, for all of us, and that's why I was asking how even smaller organizations and nonprofits should be looking at it from that perspective. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
But your organizations are already purpose-built. You are training a generation of young people to be artistic and contribute to the artistic life of the community. So you're a purpose-built organization. It's hard for a purpose-built organization to focus on performance, as it is for a performance-oriented organization to incorporate purpose. So it's a tough, addition on both sides.
So I'm just going to let people know that we're going to try to get to as many of the questions that were given to us on the forum, and at the same time we want to be fair to Indra and at the same time cover all the topics that we want to cover. So if you don't hear your question or if you don't hear your name, it doesn't mean it wasn't there. It's probably cloaked in another question or another response from Indra. So we do have two questions from Ritika and Monica. Ritika, where are you? And Monica. And the question actually, both of them are kind of related in the sense that it says, when you were young, 25 years, how did you approach your career? And what was your framework? And, every step that requires a shift, I think, I think, how should I lead? How should I relate to others? So that's the question from their standpoint as young people building their careers.
My first suggestion, request, plea to all of you, when you're young, don't start saying, I want to be a CEO before I'm 50. Here is my plan. Don't that. Because if you did that and you said, I want to be CEO by this time, I should reach these milestones, you start to obsess over that. As opposed to, I have to do my job well. Unless you do your job better than everybody else, nobody's going to look at you as promotable. So here are some suggestions I'd give you young people. Focus on the job at hand. Do that job better than anybody else. There is a speech I'd love for you all to go and read. It's a very short speech, the shortest speech that Martin Luther King gave. He gave it at a school in Philadelphia, I think in 1986, around that time. What's your life's purpose, he says. But that speech is about 6 paragraphs. Brilliant. I read it regularly because it motivates me. Think of that speech, and the reason I ask you to read that speech is because you have to do your current job better than anybody else to be considered for any other job. Because many people focus on the current job a little bit and are thinking about the next job and wondering when they're going to get it. Don't do that. That's the first. Second, you've got to put your hand up for the tough assignments. When you do an easy assignment, people go, anybody could have done that job. But if you put your hand up for the toughest assignments, and if you deliver, more power to you. But even if you made progress, people look at you and say, you put your hand up for the toughest assignment and you made progress. So that's the second advice. Third, put the company before you. Okay? Some people like to criticize the company. Okay? You are the company. What are you criticizing? Put the company before you. All your comments and criticism, be constructive. Don't gossip. Don't play the politics. Be constructive and make sure you realize this is your company as long as you stay there. If you choose to leave the company, leave. But don't stay in the company and throw stones. And the last thing I tell you is, be unselfish. If there's something you can share with other people, your skills, your time, please do. Very early on in your life, you should be viewed as a people developer, not a people stopper. So make sure you demonstrate that you love to develop people, that you can share your skills with them. You do that, people look at you as a real leader as opposed to, she's just a climber. Very different messages.
So in that context, at what juncture and what experience or what events that led to your getting to the point where you said, oh, now I'm ready to be CEO, or whoever asked you or whoever gave you the opportunity?
I was doing that through my entire life, Harish, and in fact I'd say I put the company way on top of my list. Mm-hmm. And so I had no social life in the company. It was the company, home, Raj and the kids, and that's it, because that was my life. And it's interesting. We had a CEO who would take guys away for the weekend, executives away for the weekend. They'd go fishing, hunting, horseback riding, golfing, and they sit around a fire pit like this, barbecue and drink and have fun. This is bonding in those days. I was never invited, even though I was reported to the CEO. Now, in today's terms, people say, I was excluded, this is female excluded. My point is, thank God you didn't invite me. Because I don't golf, I don't fish, I don't eat meat, I don't drink. Okay? What else did I say? I don't horseback ride. What the hell am I going to do there? And I have kids at home and Raj, so I wanted to be home. So I didn't go with them, I just stayed and did the work. And you can say that, but what if all the people around him built a community and they could have gotten promoted? They could have, but this brings me to my next lesson for all of you. Each of you who wants to move ahead has to have a proposition that you offer. The company should be able to look at you and say, this person is so good at this, I don't ever want to lose her. If you don't have a proposition and you say, I'm just a good worker, everybody's a good worker, but what is your proposition? In my case, it was give Indra the most complex assignment, she'll demystify it, get it down to its pieces, and somehow get it done. That was my proposition. And I proved it time and time again. To a point where I told the CEO, you can go out with your boys, you can have your weekend, but if you make a single decision when you're in your outing, I will not work on it. Because most of the things had to go through me. I said, I'm not going to work on it. I want to be part of the decision making. And he never ever handed me a decision made with the boys over the weekend because he was terrified. He said, I'm not ever going to risk losing her. He never ever made a decision with the boys. They had a good time, which is okay. But, at the end of the day, they didn't become CEO, I became CEO. And so I say to you, have a clear proposition and make sure you fine-tune it all the time. Just because you have a proposition one day, just don't think that it's top, because you've got to be a lifelong student. You've got to fine-tune that proposition, modify it, improve it. You've got to do that. If you don't have that, forget it. Nobody's going to notice you. You can be a good worker, but if you want to ascend, it takes a lot more.
I want to just be sensitive. Pranabhai, do you want to turn around and be comfortable? Are you making sure? Yes. So, this is a question from Manish Bardia. Manish, are you here? Yes. And the question was, how can you make small businesses build strong brand loyalty like Pepsi?
Oh my God. Look, companies like PepsiCo have spent billions of dollars over decades to build brand loyalty. And even that in today's social media world is fleeting, because incumbents can come in and sort of disrupt you either through alternate product formulations or just through more intelligent marketing. My recommendation to you, and I mentioned it to our two young Jesse and Jasmine, the key thing is when you're a small business, the tendency is to go too broad and too wide. You can't do that. You've got to start with what is your core market and who is your core consumer. You have got to build a foundation in that core market and core consumer and build your brand with that group. And only then should you inch out of the core. We always, in Frito-Lay, every time we launched a new product, we'd say, grow the core, then add more. Many people have the tendency to say, I need to go and plant a flag everywhere. Don't do that. If you build it in one loyal base and then inch out of that core, you have a fighting chance of developing a strong brand. Okay?
So we'll move on to a very, very dear topic to us, because as an organization, we've really been purposeful in terms of this, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the question is, what practical advice would you give to organizations seeking to move beyond tokenism towards meaningful inclusion?
Okay, I think the biggest problem we've had in recent years is DEI became too big a program. Companies set up big DEI departments, and CEOs delegated DEI to those people and didn't really practice the spirit of DEI. So in many ways, I'd say the fact that we're rethinking it is a good thing. Now let's come back. And when I was there, I never talked about DEI, even though it existed. I talked about talent management, okay, of which, DEI was a part of it, but let me come to this. Steve Reinemund, who was the CEO before me, started this. He said, if PepsiCo has to be successful, we have to draw employees from the entire employee base, not from just one base or the other, not from one slice or the other. Because if you look at the numbers, 70% of high school valedictorians are women. 70% of high school valedictorians are girls. Women are getting more than 50% of the college degrees. They're graduating in master's programs at levels equal to men. 47% of the MIT graduating class is women. And I was teaching at West Point. The numbers amaze me. Only 23% of West Point are women. 3 years ago when I was there, of the top 10 rank holders, 6 were women. So we're talking about an incredibly talented base of talent available out there. Now, if you can't find a way to bring talent into the company, all the talent, keep them in the company and develop them, you're wasting resources. Because if you spend time and money to recruit them, but then they face a hostile environment, they leave. You've lost time and money. You've lost a talent that could walk out. And you cannot hire one person and say, I'm going to develop this person. You need a critical mass of people to make them feel included. So Steve did something very interesting. He said, I want to hire from tier 2, tier 3 schools, because for our sales positions, they stay. So he started a big program to hire them. And then he said, I know that our tendency is to not hire people who look like us, who don't look like us. So he was very keen to say, for the first 2 or 3 years, I have to put in some numerical goals. Because everybody goes to their comfort zone to hire people that look like them. So he said, the first few years, we're going to put numbers and quotas to get to critical mass of people. Once we get a critical mass of people, it will grow itself. So he didn't call it DEI, he just said it's a talent management program. And all of us should look at the spirit behind DEI as a talent management program, which is based on merit, but merit applied to the entire population group. It's almost like you shut your eyes and say, I don't care whether you're a man or a woman or what ethnicity you are, I'm going to hire the best and brightest. It's like writing the IIT entrance exam, blind. And the best rank holders get to pick IIT Madras, you know what I mean? So it's like that. You just have to... Just kidding. I'm just kidding. But what I'm saying to you is, it's got to be that sort of an approach in the way you think about DEI. Instead, what do? We made a program out of it. We put very explicit quotas. We discriminated against people. And then DEI departments took a life of their own. And they were never reporting to the CEO. They were a separate department. And the CEO just said, keep me out of trouble. Publish the scorecards. That's not the intent of DEI. So we need a reset. We need a rethink. Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember that because I was, I think, part of the original affirmative action programs that were there in the 80s and in the hiring process. And, I still remember that. That was...
The problem is when you come in through those programs, people look at you and say, oh, quota hire. And you automatically start with a negative on you as opposed to, hey, she was hired for her capabilities or her skills or her proposition is fantastic. Rather, man, not another quota hire. And then you have to dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, we're talking about women. And women in terms of work-life balance. So the question I have from Sweta. Sweta's here? Yeah, the question
Yes,
from
Sweta.
Sweta is I often find myself thinking differently, bringing tech and storytelling and leading some impactful initiatives. And I think this also was from Ruchi and Dr. Seemaji in terms of how some of those things are from a standpoint of how do you maintain a healthy life balance when you are a woman, when you're a mother, or when you're a family, and in terms of your work and your career. It seems like you always are the one that's making the compromises.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Would you ask men this question?
So I would not. So you have to. It's interesting because all the three people who asked me to ask this question are all women.
I didn't ask about them. I asked about you.
That's an interesting question, and I don't know. And the only reason I say that is because I'm also in the context of men who have also been on the other side.
Yeah. So let me go through. The problem is we've decided that family is female. And anything to do with the family, we only should direct it to the female. Family is husband and wife. And, I hate to put him on the spot, but Raj Nooyi, you're going to have to come and answer part of this question. Absolutely. So you might as well just come right here. Come on. They have to hear from you. This is a friendly audience. Come on. Come on. You got to come. Hey, just bring him out here. One of you, let's see if you can. But just come and sit down and just come. Okay? Because it was a partnership for us. This wasn't me or him. It was a partnership. In fact, Raj agreed to up and move from Chicago to New York for me. So it was a partnership for us. And I've said this before, there is nothing called work-life balance. Anybody who thinks that word should be used in the context of work-life, forget it. There is no balance. When you make a checklist for the day, in the first 10 minutes, that checklist goes out the window because the school called you that your daughter sprained her ankle. First 3 items on the checklist, gone. So anybody who thinks your life can be, checklist, there's books like The Pie Life, how you divide your day into a pie. throw those books out. Don't buy them. There is no pie. There's no checklist that works. You just juggle. And you just hope that the most important balls don't fall on the floor. And for women, I will tell you, it doesn't matter how good a mother you were, you will feel guilt. And later on, if you have daughters, they will make sure you feel guilt. Okay? For sure. That is life. That is life. You can't do anything about it. But in terms of what more can you do for balance, let me turn it to my dear husband, Raj Nooyi.
I'm not sure balance is the right word. It's basically how do you manage through a given situation. And every situation is different at different points in time. As in retrospect, and now these questions are being asked, and so you start thinking about them. We didn't think about these questions at the point in time that we were facing these situations. I would break it into two parts in terms of thinking about it. One is it's a commitment to each other, a husband and wife. Okay, meaning if you're truly committed to each other's success, then you'll find the right answer. Okay, and that's the most important thing, because if you're trying to optimize and or maximize your side of the equation versus somebody else's, it's a problem. It's very difficult to do it. And then beyond that, it's very, very pedantic. Okay, it's basically, we used to look at our quarterly schedules and say which are the ones that you have to be at, which are the ones I have to be at, and then how do we juggle our schedules around that to make sure that you're scheduled that in. And then it's a weekly scheduling. So we had a quarterly schedule and a weekly schedule. And the weekly schedule was one where we kind of managed it on the fly. So there's no magic answer, but I think the most important one is the first point that I made. If you have a commitment to each other's success, then you'll find a way. If you don't, then it's going to be quite challenging.
Absolutely.
I'll go back to warmer quarters.
He's got a few more questions for you.
Connecticut. Yeah, exactly. Not that
Getting old.
So we got you in on one. We might have another one for you soon. So stand by. But I want to go to something which is kind of a little bit in the realm of future, and that's from a standpoint of parents who have kids that are now going through college, and they're struggling. And by the way, these are points that were brought up by Rajiv and Geeta. And Rajiv has has a son that just graduated from the University of Miami. Mm-hmm. Rajiv, where are you? Okay, yeah. So obviously there's a lot of angst among his classmates and peers about the current economic climate. More importantly, I think what they're thinking is, what's the future for them? And what's the kind of thing that they can look at? And how should we, as parents and business leaders, talk to them about that?
There are two issues. One is, how do you talk about social issues and dealing with friends and communities that are created on social media? I'm not going to touch on that for now. I'm going to come to something else. I think the biggest concern that young kids have when they graduate, they don't know anymore what's an entry-level job. Because entry-level jobs are prime for AI harvesting. You know that. Because everything that AI is doing right now is basically saying we don't need those entry-level jobs. Okay? Paralegals, accountants, people who would do analysis, financial analysis, we don't need any of them. And what has happened is this group of kids coming out of colleges this year, the next 2 years, are going to be in this no man's land or no woman's land where the frontline jobs or the entry-level jobs are going away one by one by one. For every 10 jobs you had, you might need just one or two to oversee, the human touch to oversee whether the job was done right without hallucinations. And nobody has taken the time to say, is there an alternate entry-level job? And are you qualified for that alternate entry-level job? Example, Raj is big on getting manufacturing back to the country, but not making clothes or spools of thread. It's really high-tech manufacturing. Are these kids really trained to go into that manufacturing environment? Do they consider it aspirational? Do they want to go work in manufacturing, which used to be aspirational? Is anybody retooling these people to work in manufacturing? These educational issues have not been talked about. So I actually worry about graduates coming out of school these days. And even those who have entered the workforce, who are 2 years into the job, I think in Wall Street, even in software companies where AI can now write code, you don't need a lot of those people. So there's going to have to be a massive retooling of the job base to see where else you can deploy these young people. And there is going to be some angst and some displacement. That's the reality. Nobody's talking about it, but the reality is that is the reality. Raj, you want to add something?
I was just talking to our accountant the other day, a couple of days ago, regarding this AI and its implications on entry-level jobs and accounting firms. And he said something interesting, that they're trying out AI. It seems to work very well for very simple returns. As soon as you get to very complex returns meaning things that have K1s in them, it seems to fail. The issue they're wrestling with is if they don't recruit these young people and train them without this AI tools and all that, then they don't have the intuition, they don't develop the intuition to pick up the errors in these AI developed returns and all that stuff. So it's a chicken and an egg problem that they're facing. They want to use AI. If they use AI, they don't need as many entry-level people. When they don't need when they don't have as many entry-level people, they're not developing them to be able to catch the problems that are there in the complex returns. So if it's simple 1040, whatever.
Well, I think you're right, because
okay.
the Goldman Sachs of the world used to hire 1,500 interns. Now they're saying 500-600 is plenty. And that's a big drop, because a lot of kids have banked on those jobs to pay off the tuition loans. And so this is the issue on the jobs. And you're right, because if you don't have people developing, the older people retire, and then who's got the know-how? That's one issue. The second issue is these kids today, they have so much pressure on them to conform. The whole fear of missing out, and society defines how they should look, how they should interact, and we as parents don't help, because many of us first-generation immigrants still have our old immigrant values of who cares how you look like, just focus on your studies. I did that to my kids. I'm sure you don't do it. Oh, we do it, okay? We did it. Just focus on work. That's what's most important. Little realizing the incredible pressures they go through. And when they talk to us about it, we dismiss it, saying, just forget it, those are not for us. That's it. We chose to bring them to this country. We chose to give birth to them in this country. And somehow we've told them that the problems that they face are not real problems. So there's a big problem, at least with my generation, that parents have to address too, in order to give these kids a fighting chance of surviving this social media disasters that are happening.
So that also was an answer for us, because we have two young boys, but that have taken off we've given them the freedom to take off in whatever direction they choose. And one has gone into music and the other is in sports. So I have no idea what's going to happen. So
Must be your cricketing skills from back then.
Not the one we discussed today.
Ramya is not going to talk to you today. Sports are finished.
I know I've got something coming when I go back.
So Ramya wasn't the best one.
No. Raj, that was college days. So give me a break. Come on. I did know her then, actually, to be honest with you. So, yeah. But then now shifting, interestingly, to the other end of the spectrum with people that are getting close to retirement. The question is, how do you plan for it? Or what would you do? And if somebody says, I'm thinking of retiring, but not sure what to do, what comes next, things like that. So what would you say to them?
See, I'm not the right person to ask that question because, I had a, plate of things to do and there were a lot of requests. So I was trying to think through what not to do because it was like I could have been busier than I was at PepsiCo and would have been a good life, but it would have been crazy. I still am pretty busy. I think for the average person, when time comes for retirement, don't overstay the welcome because the worst thing that can happen is the company says, please retire. Retire on your terms, retire when you are ready to go off and do something and you've developed people. So you leave with a positive tailwind as opposed to, God, when is this person going to retire? First point. Point number 2, recognize there is life after retirement. Life is not all bleak. You may not make as much money as you did while you were in active business, but there's so much you can do to give back to society. All of our communities, all of our towns are full of purpose projects that is dying for people to contribute to. Now, it is very noble to get involved in purpose-driven projects. It's very noble. Don't think that just because it doesn't pay, it's not a good project. Get involved in purpose-driven projects. Focus on yourself. I never focused on myself when I was working. I used to read till midnight, I'd sleep, wake up at 4, and Raj would say, you need to work out. I say, what time do I work out? This used to be an ongoing argument between us. He'd say, you got to work out. I say, I can't. I'm just stating absolute truths because it used to, this conversation would go on every week. I'd say 4 a.m. to 5 a.m., I can't because I have to get things ready for the kids. I've got to read some more stuff to get to work. And so I never took care of myself. Once I retired, I'm taking care of myself. I love it. Makes you feel great and gives you a little step in your life, and it's great. So focus on yourself and reconnect with family. I think that when you're so busy with your job, you just don't reconnect with family and friends or connect with family and friends as you should. So use all this as a time to do something with purpose, which feeds the soul, take care of yourself, which feeds the body, and go off and connect with family and friends. And make sure you get a financial advisor that helps you think through your savings very carefully because that could disappear in a heartbeat if you're not careful. Am I plugging for somebody's business here?
I didn't ask you to do that.
Do you have anything to add?
Do you need to add?
Do you have anything to add?
Actually, in the US, there is not enough financial education even from childhood.
Yep.
That's the biggest drawback. I think the schools and government should take interest in educating the younger population.
Yeah.
So that's why they can do that. And many times people postpone. Time is our friend and time is also our enemy.
Sure.
And in our industry, we have adage study. We plan to fail. We don't fail to plan. So planning is everything. So whether I tell planning is like a GPS. I have to go from my house to Laguna Nagar. If there is a traffic jam, I can go like this. If you got a strong financial plan, I think you can get where you want to get there.
Maybe, as a community program, we take our kids and teach them financial planning.
Balaji, you're it. So
Actually,
think about what you can do for that kind of program.
We're
We'll find some
volunteering you.
people to. Come on, Rotary will help, right? You know that. So
Actually, we did some of the pro bono work. I'm on the board of Financial Planning Association.
We assumed it was pro bono.
We did some education at the Santa Ana School, elementary schools. Actually,
Yeah.
we did some pro bono work. Yeah.
I think South Asian kids could use that help too. Yeah. Because,
You got your first customer. Education films.
that's really good information for us. Beth, we have a few Rotarians here. We do a lot of community service projects, and this could be the theme in terms of, we do a lot of projects with youth, and I think this might be the theme for something like that. So let's kind of explore that. And, I'm sorry to kind of backpedal here just a little bit because I think this concept was something that appealed to me. I'm sure it appealed to a lot of people, but you've been at the highest levels of business, and yet you've always looked at it or emphasized humility and service. So you had the concept of servant leadership as one of the cornerstones of your own leadership. Can you expound on that?
The one thing that happens when you become CEO, enter the C-suite, you think the world revolves around you. You think of the most important thing, and the company succeeds because of you. The financials are delivered because of you. In reality, you become just the figurehead in a way. The people who make it happen are the people in the front line. The people on the manufacturing floor, the people who are driving the route trucks, putting the product on the shelves, making the products. They are the people that actually help us make money. And I always told my guys in corporate, all of you count the money. Somebody else makes the money for us. Don't forget your position in the company. And that's where the servant leadership comes. Some people have been cute and drawn upside down pyramids. I don't believe in all that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, we all have to understand that we serve the organization, which then serves the consumer. So if you think of us as serving all of the front line, it's a different perspective than saying, hey, all of you work for me and I tell you what to do and you will give me the respect that I deserve. You have to give them the respect that they deserve. You just have to change your mindset a little bit.
I'm going to branch off into something that we both share a lot of, which is in the interest in music. So I know I've got my own tastes in whatever I do, but I was curious to know, obviously through your career, did you still continue to maintain an interest in any kind of music in general? Did you try to learn, practice, or what was your engagement with music?
I had no time to take zero time, Harish. Zero time. So when we were growing up, I owned one guitar, which was a pretty yucky guitar. Now I own 25 guitars. Yeah, and fabulous guitars gifted by every musician that played Pepsi halftime shows. Signed by them. They're all hanging in my office. Some are so valuable that I put it away. I don't know if I'll ever play it because you have to develop calluses to play the guitar. So I'm too vain to cut off my nails and do that. So I decided I'll just listen to music. The privilege that one has had being in PepsiCo is that PepsiCo is about music and sports. So you get to meet all the musicians and all the sports athletes. Every Super Bowl, the halftime person, we met with them and chatted with them. All the big sports figures, every one of them. Owners of NFL teams, we've been to lots of games with the owners. It was almost obligatory, you better show up for one game of the 49ers or the Patriots or whatever. So you sit for, until halftime in the box and chit-chat, then you leave and go home. But it was a very enviable position. So I didn't stay with music in terms of playing music. I listened to it and I met a lot of musicians, a lot. And got to know them personally and I had a hell of a good time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did any of the stories around one of those guitars, is that something you can share with us when you got it, or what was the circumstances under which?
Lots of things. Lionel Richie performed at the 150th anniversary of Pepsi, and he signed a guitar and said, "With much love," and gave it to me. So I love Lionel Richie's music, so it's hanging there. Blake Shelton, when he performed at the CMA, we were supposed to go to Nashville for it. I didn't go. I was, busy with something. He took the guitar that he performed at CMA and he wrote, "I love you, Blake Shelton." Said, but not that it means anything, but it's there. Blake Shelton saying, "Indra, I love you." Whoa! Okay. So there's all of these guitars hanging with various messages of endearment, and do they mean anything to me? No, not really. I just look at them and say, wow, I knew Blake Shelton and had a cup of coffee with him, or Paul McCartney or Luke Bryan or Dixie Chicks or Bruno Mars and Lionel Richie or Usher, all of those guys. But Doesn't mean
Who
anything.
was the best? All of them.
Best in terms of what?
Singing, person-wise, persona-wise, like really awesome. Like you felt like, okay, I want to meet him again.
You see, the musicians that are incredible musicians are not good conversationalists. Very different, okay?
Yeah.
Because they have very narrow interests.
Correct. He's listening.
We have one here.
He's listening.
Yeah. I hope you have broad interests. But some of the musicians have sat, I will not mention names. One very famous musician that I sat next to for a whole dinner, I'm like, well, get me out of here, because in my entire life I wanted to meet this musician. But when I sat next to him, he couldn't talk beyond his music, but his music. And across the table, his wife was having an interesting conversation. I was dying to go sit with her and chat. And I'm like, I can't do that because, they put me in this seat of honor. Other musicians, they're fun. Blake Shelton used to call me sis. Hey sis, how you sis? And fine, okay sis. Yeah, but I loved his music. We've been to a few Blake Shelton concerts. All the sports athletes, there's Michael Jordan, or the Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Derek Jeter, Aaron Judge. I mean, we've been with all of them. And we've been friends with all of them. Michael Jordan's been in our house, okay. But these are transactional relationships. They're not personal relationships. This goes back to the other point on retirement. When you're in your job and all the privileges that come with it, you've got to know it's positional, not personal. The minute your position goes away, in most cases, those relationships go away. Some might endure, but they're all positional. The minute you kid yourself that you're so big that you're going to have these friendships forever, you are kidding yourself. Sometimes they may not even return a call if you call them after you retire. So when I retired, I got a lifetime pass to go to any Yankees game. Any game. I've never used it because they probably gave it to me knowing that I wouldn't use it. NFL pass to go to any NFL games. NBA pass to go to any NBA games with the owner's box. But we haven't used it even once.
I'll take it.
Oh yeah, we haven't used it even once. Oh, they're not interested.
Is it because you don't understand the game?
No, I love that. I watch it on TV. I watch most of the Yankees games on TV. The point is that I think your value goes up with scarcity.
Okay.
You keep that in mind. Some people overuse these things and pretty soon, there she comes again.
Correct. Yeah.
Never been to one. I think we went to one Yankees game upstairs in the box and stayed a couple of innings and went back downstairs to our seats. So we don't use these tickets. So be careful. Positional versus personal, scarcity has more value than plenty. Okay?
I'm going to ask you this question from a standpoint of, most of us have our own bucket lists and things we want to do in life. But also there are things that you've had a fear of, things that you were afraid to do. Are there such things that you may want to look at as an adventure or as an experience at this time?
The one thing I have to do, I'm terrified, but I have to do it. My daughter has a dog, and I'm scared to death of dogs. I am scared to death. She's got a Bernese mountain dog who's the most darling dog, who adores Raj, and Raj loves the dog. But I am terrified of dogs. And so I run away and hide behind the door. My daughter thinks I should go to therapy for dogs. I am not going to go to therapy. But my daughter is due to have a child, our first grandchild in August. And I'm sitting here going, the dog is going to be introduced to the grandchild. How are we going to handle this combination of dog and baby, and mummy's scared, and Raj thinks that I'm being irrational, or what do you say?
When our daughter brought the puppy, that was the best time for her to have gotten over
This was
it.
this big a puppy, okay? This is a Bernese mountain dog.
That big puppy, the little fluffy puppy. But
true.
now it's like a mini elephant. This thing is, I don't know.
85 pounds.
85 pounds. It's a beautiful dog. It's a very gentle dog.
Like
But-
Raj stands there, if Aja sees Raj, she'll come running. I think Raj is going to fall down because she jumps on Raj. And Raj is like, Tutupu, come here. I'm like, this baby, he loves it. But I can't do it. I'm watching from the window saying, I'm glad I'm not there. So talk about overcoming fear. Now I've progressed from the window to, I tell Preeta, if you hold the dog on a leash, I'll sit here. I've come a long way, Harish. So
I think
I'm
missing out in that.
missing out.
Dogs are wonderful.
Dogs work in perception. If you're fearful of them, they really want to come close to you.
They want to come close to you.
So the therapy session is already started.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking to myself, I don't have to pay a therapist. In another 3 minutes, I will get all the therapy I need. Yeah. I know I'm missing out, but all the things I've gotten in life, I'm okay to miss out on. No, but I am committed to addressing this fear.
Well, I'm going to come in some sense. I love dogs, so I have to come and see the dog.
I told the kids there's this dog that you can get, a little puff dog with a leash and a little bubble. When you squeeze this balloon, the dog will jump. I said, I'll buy you that. I said, nope, want a real dog. No cats. Oh, God. Oh, please. Don't even mention it. Just a dog.
You're lucky that they had it after they went out of home.
No, they wanted a dog. Raj wanted a dog too. I said you can pick between mommy and the dog.
Same here.
I would be the dog keeper.
No, I told them you can have mommy or dog. Which one would you like? They didn't automatically say mom. They huddled the two of them and said, which answer would allow us to survive in this household? That's okay.
So there was a question which, in terms of what is the Nooyi household schedule like now?
Today, now?
Yeah.
Household schedule. I wake up, about 4 o'clock in the morning still. And it's not that I want to, I just can't sleep. And I get up and have my cup of morning filter coffee. It's like heaven. Heaven. I don't want anybody else to wake up. I read all the newspapers on my iPad, do the crossword connections, everything. Wordle. I do every puzzle. And around 5:36, the king wakes up. The king wakes up and the household stirs. And then we have a very busy day all day. Raj is doing his thing. I'm doing my thing.
Well, what is your thing?
Oh, what is my thing? I sit on boards. I sit on the board of Amazon. I sit on the board of Philips of Netherlands. I sit on the board of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Hospital, the National Gallery of Art in Washington. I sit on MIT Engineering and the computer science boards. I sit on the advisory board of Apollo, Deutsche Bank, and Temasek. And I was on the ICC board until July of last year.
Correct.
I was teaching at West Point, finished my term there, and I wrote the book. So my days are pretty full.
So, in that context, do you have a sequel to your book?
No,
or something?
never. No more books. Never. Book is done. Book is not fun to write. Too much work, fact-checking. I mean, you and I went to Leslie Sawney program of training for... Harish and I were in the same program. I don't know how this program came about and why we got invited to go to it. Somebody must have asked us to come and talk to them. So when my writer was helping me write the book, I put down there saying I went to this Leslie Sawney program for training in democracy, which was an unbelievable program, if I recall. But I said, I don't really know who started it and how we got picked for it. She didn't believe me. So she said, I have to fact check it. So she fact checks for like 2 months, and there's nothing on the Leslie Sawney program. Then she finds this microfiche in the University of Minnesota, which she requisitions, and there it says some guy was invited to the Leslie Sawney program in Aurangabad, not in Devlali. We were in Devlali, in Aurangabad, and he writes in the article, I have no idea how I was asked to interview for the program. She goes, good, now I've fact-checked it. But you see...
There's something like that. She should have called me.
Well, doesn't count as fact-check. But I'm telling you this, that, it's like things like this that we had to go through. Lucky we got invited to Leslie Sony program, but nobody believed that we got picked for all these things.
Was it in the same program Sarla was?
Yeah, Sarla Uma.
We met Sarla on a cruise ship.
Oh, is that right?
After 40 years or something. And they were looking at each other like,
we know each other from somewhere. We had a great group.
We had a fun time, and you're right, it was one of those very, very unique programs.
So it's a program, Leslie Sony was a Colonel, Leslie Sony. He endowed some money, and for 8 or 10 days, we were taken off, young kids who were just graduated to high school, college. We went off there, and every day for half a day, people like Nani Phalkewala would come and talk about constitution law. I think Brigadier Dalvi would talk about how the line was drawn between India and Pakistan, separating the two countries. They talked to us about the importance of democracy, importance of elections. So there was an expert on every topic that would come and do seminars in the morning. They would stick around in the afternoon for us to talk to them. And the night over the fire, Brigadier Dalvi, Colonel Sen would tell us stories about Indian independence, how it all came about. And they were really grooming us kids to be leaders and take on democracy. Unbelievable, isn't it? So far-sighted and so unbelievable. So we were picked to go to that. 1974, wasn't it?
Well, we're getting close to the finish time, but I've gone through most of the questions, combinations thereof of people that have given me as questions. I'll entertain maybe 1 or 2 questions. So, Sanjay, go ahead.
So Indra, great talk. Thank you so much for your insights. Loved it. It's okay.
Yeah, can you just...
You were so inspired by your parents, but here is a more hypothetical question. If there was one person you would love to meet or would have loved to meet in your career, who would that have been?
Would have loved to meet. I don't know, look, different times of your career, different people sort of impress you. I would have loved to have met JFK because in the early 60s, growing up as a kid, just coming into age, I remember crying for days when JFK was shot. And so he was so inspirational at that time. It was like, God, I wish I could meet JFK. He came to India, I think, with Jacqueline Kennedy.
Yes.
And he came in a motorcade through Chennai, and it was like a big deal for us. And so I wanted to meet JFK then. Fast forward to today, who would I like to meet? Who? I've met him, so it's okay. I'm trying to see who I have not met that I would have liked, that I would like to meet. I don't think there's anybody in the world that I want to meet I have not met. I've met them all, literally, every one of them. So.
One more. Yes, Adit, who's there? Anybody who hasn't had a question? Padmini? Okay, I'm going to...
I wrote it through COVID. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big writer. I do everything in bullet points and slides. But I worked with a fantastic writer who was very good at taking my thoughts and framing chapters. And then she would give it to me and I'd edit it again and again and again so we got it right. How long did it take us? 18 months to write the book? 18 months to write the book. And we worked through COVID. Our office was the hub for Reopen Connecticut for COVID because all the meetings were happening there. And the other part of the office was all the researchers working on the book and the writers and everything else. So we don't know COVID, we worked through it. And the book got done. So the best was the cover of the book, you know. Annie Leibovitz, the famous photographer, took that picture. And she came to our home and she scouted out the place and she picked a couple of spots. And the interesting story was the picture was taken in the month of March or April before the magnolias had bloomed. But she wanted that magnolia tree to be blooming. So her people bought magnolias, you know, already bloomed magnolias. And they spent all morning attaching it to the tree. And we're looking at this going, what the hell are you doing? They wanted that picture by the magnolia tree, but which they didn't use. They gave me the picture, but they didn't use it. Then she said, I want you to wear a black sweater. I said, I have lots of black sweaters. Every one I wore, she said, no, I don't like it. So she left and went home. She built a studio in front of our house. She went home. The next day, the Vogue stylist showed up in a van and pulled out this rack of black sweaters. Of just black sweaters. I'm like, what's wrong with you? I have lots of black sweaters. I don't like any of them. So try out the black sweaters that I brought you, and then I'll take a picture. And she was a perfectionist par excellence. And she kept taking pictures, and she says, none of them working out well. She called Preeta and Tara, who were visiting at that time, and said, both of you over my shoulder, she said. And then she said, that's the only time you smile from inside. So Preeta and Tara were hanging over her shoulder while she took the picture. And she had a hairstylist who would keep ruffling my hair to make it look, as she put it, not like a wig. And Sally, muss up that hair. And Sally Hirschberg would come into us and I would keep doing this. And this was her thing. So once the photograph came, I'm like, oh my God, my hair is never like this. I bet everybody's going to say, Michael, why didn't you comb your hair? But Annie, that was a masterpiece. So we went through lots of experiences like this, where you go with an iconic person. What I learned is, with an iconic photographer, she decides which photograph of yours should be used in the book. You cannot not use it. Once you've hired her, she decides. You cannot tell her what edits to make, but she will not make an edit. So go to this project with your eyes wide open, because otherwise you'll be very disappointed. It turned out okay, but it was tough, the process. On that note.
Harish. Who was that?
Young kid, yeah.
Okay. Get her the mic.
Or come in front.
Come in front.
So look at them and tell me.
What's one habit you think kids my age should start now to become good leaders?
You may not like what I said. Is that okay? You should start putting away your phone for at least 2 hours every day. No social media, nothing. Remember, I'm not saying stop looking at it. I say you should start putting it away.
Yeah.
Try.
She agrees. She said, yeah, okay, I'll see.
It's liberating. I have to tell you, in Connecticut, thanks to the work of Jonathan Haidt and his book, The Anxious Generation, which you should read, Jonathan Haidt has been talking to a lot of the states in the eastern seaboard. And in Connecticut, we've taken cell phones away in middle school and even in high schools. The principals are saying, now at break, you actually hear the kids talking and laughing and interacting. Before, the minute the break was called, everybody pulled out the telephone. Now she's saying the school feels like a school. They're talking, they're interacting. It's fantastic. That's awesome. So, something to be said. So start putting it away, okay? Thank you.
Easy to do.
So, Indra, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome, Harish.
Well, we haven't finished yet. I've got a few thank yous to say, others than this, but let's sit down, relax.
Sit down again.
So, what she said today is a reflection of all of her purpose-driven leadership, the cultural identity, and the community engagement that resonates with all of us very deeply. So, especially for us, because we're looking to bridge cultures, bridge across cultures and generations. And we just talked about one of those issues. So, one thing that you've reminded us is that leadership isn't just about titles or results, but about service, empathy, and vision. So on behalf of everyone here, thank you for lighting the way and inspiring us to lead with courage, compassion, and conviction. Thank you. And
old school, Harish.
I know.
He's put away his phone.
So I want to thank all of you for coming out here today and supporting the event, particularly the sponsors for the evening. I do want to mention them, and as I call out, please raise your hand, make a noise, or whatever you want to do. We have dentist Archana Pimple and Sanjeev Pimple. We have Rahul and Aditi Simlote of Friends Companion Care. Vic and Vani Torpunuri. They're at the back. Vic, wave.
You're the inside.
Oh, you're inside. Okay, all right. There you go. Rajiv and Meena Kapoor. Ajesh and Swati Patel. Thank you. Jagannathan. Thank you. Seema Chaudhary of Ace Montessori. And Aditi Majumdar. I don't know what happened with the appetizers, but we have a lot of food. So please make sure that you eat well. And the other thing is, the books. Do we have any books left? Preeti, do we have any books left? Okay, there's just one book left. So if anybody's interested in buying that and getting it signed with Indra, please do so ASAP. And after this, we'll just free flow. Any other announcements to make from the board? Okay, thank you all again. On behalf of the board of Ektaa, don't forget Diwali Fest is on October 4th at the Great Park Live. So thank you.